The movie begins with an incident that takes place in Rome in the year 1973. A 16-year-old boy named Paul comes to Rome as a tourist. While Paul is roaming around the city, a van suddenly stops near him. A few criminals get down from the vehicle, abduct Paul, and take him away. Paul is kidnapped because he is the grandson of J. Paul Getty, who at that time was considered the richest man in the world. The news of Paul's kidnapping reaches J. Paul Getty's assistant, who immediately informs Getty. However, upon hearing about his grandson's kidnapping, Getty shows no reaction at all. The movie then explains how J. Paul Getty became the richest man in the world. In 1948, Getty traveled to Saudi Arabia, where he made a deal with a local tribe for oil extraction. Through this deal, he gained access to massive oil reserves. By selling this oil worldwide, Getty accumulated enormous wealth and became the richest man on earth. The kidnappers abducted Paul with the intention of extorting a huge ransom from his grandfather. They take Paul to a place called Calabrian in Italy. All the kidnappers wear masks so that Paul cannot see their faces. One of the kidnappers, named Simcata, calls Paul's mother Gail Harris and informs her that her son has been kidnapped. He demands $17 million in exchange for Paul's release. Gail tells Simcata that she does not have such a huge amount of money. Simcata replies that the money is not required from her, but from Paul's grandfather, who owns all the wealth in the world. The story then shifts back to 1964 in San Francisco. Gail is shown living with her husband, John Paul Getty Jr., and their 3 children. John does not have a stable job. One day, Gail suggests that John should ask his father for financial help. Both of them decide to write a letter to J. Paul Getty requesting assistance. After some time, John receives a telegram from his father, inviting him and his family to come and meet him. Gail and John are very happy after receiving this message. They travel to Rome with their 3 children to meet Getty. Getty is staying in a luxurious hotel and warmly welcomes his son and his family. Getty asks them if they would like to live with him as a family. John's family is extremely happy to hear this. Inside the hotel room, they notice that Getty has hung his clothes to dry. Getty explains that he did not give his clothes to the hotel staff for laundry because it would cost him $10, so he preferred washing them himself. Getty never missed any opportunity to save money. Later, Getty is having lunch with his son John and grandson Paul. Getty suddenly remembers that he fired one of his employees and offers John that position. He appoints John as the head of Getty Oil Corporation's European region. The movie then moves forward to 1971 in Morocco. Paul has grown older and comes to visit his father. John is now living a lavish and reckless life, surrounded by multiple women. Whatever money John receives, he wastes it on alcohol, drugs, and prostitutes. Due to his addiction and lifestyle, John has already broken ties with Paul's mother, Gail. Paul arrives in Morocco to meet his father, and he also starts enjoying the same lifestyle. Eventually, Paul decides to stay with his father. Later, Gail is shown sitting in front of the Getty Oil Board. She wants to divorce John because she can no longer tolerate his drug addiction. J. Paul Getty Sr. believes that Gail is trying to extort money from him using the divorce. Gail clearly tells Getty that she has no interest in his money. She places only 2 conditions. First, that her son Paul should be brought back from Morocco and handed over to her. Second, that her children should remain under her custody. Getty Corporation agrees to bear all the expenses related to Paul's education. The movie then shows that Paul is brought back from Morocco to Rome Airport, after which Gail takes Paul with her because she does not want him to end up spoiled like his father. The story then returns once again to the year 1973. After Paul is kidnapped, Gail becomes extremely distressed and tries to contact her father-in-law J. Paul Getty, but Getty refuses to speak to her. By now, the news of Paul's kidnapping has spread across the entire media. Getty appears in front of the television media, where reporters ask him directly whether he will pay the ransom for his grandson. Gail watches Getty's media interaction on television. When a reporter asks Getty if he will spend money to save his grandson, Getty replies that he has 14 grandchildren in total. If he pays ransom for one of them, then all 14 of his grandchildren will become targets for kidnapping. Therefore, he clearly states that he will not pay any ransom for Paul. Gail also watches this news and is shocked by Getty's response. She immediately tells Getty's secretary to inform him that she is coming to meet him. The secretary passes this message to Getty. After reading it, Getty asks his staff to call Fletcher, who at that time is in Saudi Arabia attending meetings with Arab officials. Fletcher is a former CIA agent, and Getty trusts him deeply. Fletcher's personal life closely resembles Getty's. He has little interest in relationships and has been divorced 3 times. Later, Fletcher arrives to meet Getty. At the same time, Gail Harris is also present there, waiting to meet Getty. Fletcher and Gail are both waiting to be called in, and they talk while waiting. However, Getty refuses to meet Gail and instead calls Fletcher in immediately. During the meeting, Getty tells Fletcher that he must have already heard the news about his grandson Paul. Getty says that he loves his grandson deeply, which is why he wants Fletcher to go to Rome and rescue Paul from the kidnappers at the lowest possible cost and without any trouble. Getty also tells Fletcher that he must somehow handle Gail as well and avoid meeting her until the matter is resolved. Fletcher then meets Gail and tells her that he is an agent and will help her find her son. Gail tells Fletcher that since Getty has hired him, he must be very good at his job. However, she also says that this is not some mystery case. She simply needs $17 million to get her son back. Fletcher assures Gail that he will do everything possible to rescue her son, and also warns that even if ransom is paid, there is no guarantee the kidnappers will release Paul. After this, Fletcher leaves for Rome, where the media surrounds him at the airport. A local investigation officer named Carlo arrives to receive Fletcher and takes him away in his car. On the other side, at the place where Paul is being held captive, Paul starts developing a friendly conversation with a man named Enzo. Sim Cotta gives Paul a paper and orders him to write a letter to his grandfather demanding ransom money. Otherwise, they will cut off his finger and send it to him. After Paul writes the letter, Sim Cotta brings food for him into the room. At that moment, Sim Cotta forgets to wear his mask, and Paul accidentally sees his face. Sim Cotta realizes this mistake and immediately tells Paul that since he has seen his face, he will now have to kill him. Paul becomes terrified and pleads that he will not tell anyone about seeing his face. He also promises not to tell the other kidnappers. After a tense moment between the two, Sim Cotta decides not to kill Paul, but warns him that in return, Paul must make sure his grandfather pays the ransom as soon as possible. Meanwhile in Rome, Fletcher continues his investigation. One day, he notices strange markings drawn on his car. Curious and cautious, Fletcher approaches his car and drives off. Soon after, another car stops beside him, and the man inside signals Fletcher to follow him. Fletcher follows the car, which eventually stops outside a building. The man takes Fletcher inside, where several suspicious-looking men are present. Fletcher asks why he has been brought there. One of the men demands information about the ransom money. Fletcher responds that he does not believe they actually have the boy, and asks for proof that Paul is in their custody. One of the men then claims that before the kidnapping, Paul had contacted them himself and asked them to stage his kidnapping so that he could extract ransom money from his grandfather. They believe Paul has now hired someone else to carry out the kidnapping instead. Fletcher listens to this claim carefully, realizing that the situation is far more complicated than it appears. This information shocks Fletcher deeply, and he goes to Gail to ask her about it directly. Gail responds that it is possible Paul may have said something like that as a joke to someone. However, Fletcher finds Gail's repeated use of joking words very strange. Because of this, he starts suspecting that Gail and Paul might be working together, and that the kidnapping could be part of their plan. Fletcher goes and informs Paul Getty about his suspicion. Getty tells Fletcher that he had doubts about this kidnapping from the very beginning. Getty then orders Fletcher that there is no need for him to continue working on the case anymore, because Paul will return on his own if no money is paid. Fletcher fully accepts Getty's belief that Paul staged his own kidnapping. Meanwhile, Paul, who has actually been kidnapped by the real kidnappers, is waiting desperately where he is being held. One day, Paul asks the kidnappers if he can go to the washroom. One of the kidnappers takes him into the forest. After Paul finishes, he turns around and notices that the kidnapper is not wearing his mask. Seeing this, Paul immediately lowers his eyes. The kidnapper realizes that Paul has seen his face. He pulls out his gun and says that now he must kill Paul because Paul has seen his face. At that moment, another kidnapper arrives. The first kidnapper tells him that Paul has seen his face and that they must kill him. The second kidnapper also pulls out his gun and points it at Paul. Paul is extremely terrified. Suddenly, a gunshot is heard from the forest. In the next scene, Fletcher is at his home when he receives a call from Carlo, who tells him that a body has been found and that they are going to identify it. Gail is crying uncontrollably because she fears that the body might truly be Paul's. Gail angrily tells Fletcher that he is even worse than the old man Getty. She accuses him of doing nothing to save Paul and claims that because Fletcher gave Getty a false report, Paul has now been killed. Fletcher reaches the location, where Carlo tells them that a badly burned body has been found. Gail gathers her courage and looks at the body. After a moment, she realizes that this body cannot be Paul's. Fletcher also understands, after examining it, that this body does not belong to a 16-year-old boy. Carlo explains that the man who saw the body being dumped said it was thrown from the same type of van that was used during Paul's kidnapping. Because of this, the police initially believed the body could be Paul's. Carlo's team then tracks down information about the man whose body it actually is. Carlo briefs them that the man was 33 years old and a criminal who carried out robberies in the western region. His gang operated from Calabria. Fletcher and Gail then leave with a large Italian police team for Calabria. When the police team reaches the location, they find several kidnappers who are hurriedly loading their belongings into a vehicle to escape. The police open fire and kill them. After searching the area, the police do not find Paul anywhere. However, Gail recognizes Paul's clothes there and realizes that Paul had been kept at this location. One of the kidnappers is found badly injured. Before dying, he tells Carlo that Paul has been sent away. Shortly after revealing this, the kidnapper dies. Paul has been sold to another gang. This gang is led by a man named Mamaliti, who owns a large factory where counterfeit handbags are produced. Sim Kata brings Paul to Mamaliti. Mamaliti looks at Paul and tells Sim Kata that from now on, Paul will work for their gang. He orders that Paul be given proper treatment so that he can recover quickly. On the other side, Fletcher meets Mr. Getty again and tells him that the earlier report he gave about Paul and his mother possibly being involved was incorrect. Fletcher now confirms that Paul was genuinely kidnapped and that the gang who abducted him has handed him over to another gang. Fletcher warns that Paul's life is now truly in danger and insists that Getty must pay the ransom as soon as possible. However, Getty still refuses to pay the money. Fletcher asks Getty what more he wants. He reminds Getty that he is the richest man in the world and that he himself had just said he made a massive profit that day. Getty coldly replies that he wants even more and that the ransom amount must be reduced further. Later, when a call comes to Gail's house, Sim Kata angrily asks why she is not paying the money and whether she wants her son to die. Fletcher takes the phone and speaks on behalf of Mr. Getty, saying that Getty is only willing to pay $200,000, calling it a very large amount. Enraged, Sim Kata slams the phone down. Gail furiously hits Fletcher and tells him that he will no longer work on this kidnapping case. Fletcher explains that this was his negotiation tactic and tells her to wait, saying that the kidnappers will respond. That same night, Sim Kata calls again and announces that the ransom amount has now been reduced, not to $17 million, but to $7 million. He demands that the ransom be paid quickly. Meanwhile, at the place where Paul is being held captive, Mamaliti continues to keep him under strict control. At the place where Paul was being held, the men were playing loud music and dancing. Paul quietly observed everything and realized that this was his best chance to escape. He went back into his room, took oil from a chimney kept there, soaked some folded pieces of paper in the oil, and set them on fire. Paul then threw the burning paper pieces out of the window. Outside the building, there was dry grass. Because of the burning papers, the dry grass caught fire. Since loud music was playing, no one noticed the sound as the fire spread. Paul broke the back door and escaped without anyone hearing him. When Sim Kata came outside and saw the burning dry grass, he immediately realized that Paul had started the fire. Paul began running away, but Sim Kata spotted him escaping. After Paul fled, Sim Kata informed Mamaliti's men about the fire. Mamaliti's men became busy trying to put out the fire, and during that time, Paul managed to run far away. Paul ran onto the road, where a car suddenly stopped near him. Inside the car was a police officer, who took Paul into the vehicle and drove him to the police station. From the police station, Paul called his mother Gail and told her that he had escaped from the kidnappers' forest camp and asked her to come and pick him up. Gail asked Paul to first tell her which police station he was at. Before Paul could answer, someone suddenly cut the phone line. That person was Mamaliti, the gang leader who had bought Paul. Mamaliti took Paul back with him once again. Mamaliti then told his men that because Paul had set fire to the fields, the area had become highly visible, and he had suffered a major loss due to the bribes paid to the police. He said that now they must put more pressure on Getty so that he would be forced to pay the ransom. They called a doctor, who cut off one of Paul's ears. Along with the severed ear, they wrote a letter and sent it to a newspaper agent. The package also included Paul's photograph, clearly showing his missing ear. When the girl at the newspaper agency opened the package and saw its contents, she was horrified. Soon after, the police arrived at the location and sealed the entire area. Gail and Fletcher also reached there. The newspaper agency asked Gail for permission to publish the photograph of Paul's cut ear, offering her $50,000 in return. After thinking for a moment, Gail refused the money. Instead, she asked them to deliver 1,000 copies of the newspaper to a specific address. The next day, the newspaper published Paul's ear photograph and delivered 1,000 copies to J. Paul Getty's house. Getty was shocked to see so many newspapers at his home. He picked up one copy and began reading it as strong winds blew around him. Meanwhile, Gail was extremely distressed at her home when she received a call from a man named Oswald Hinge. He told her that Mr. Getty was now ready to pay the ransom, but wanted to discuss a few things first. He asked Gail to meet him at the Getty Oil office. Hearing this, Gail felt relieved and went to meet Mr. Match, Getty the next day. There, she saw her husband John sitting in the office in a drunken state. Getty told Gail that his tax attorney had confirmed that ransom money is not considered a payment, so no tax would need to be paid on it. Instead, it would be written off as interest, which would benefit him financially. Gail angrily responded that he was only agreeing to pay the ransom to save on tax. Oswald Hinge intervened and said that the only thing that mattered was getting Paul back safely. Getty then agreed to pay the ransom, but on one condition. He demanded that Gail transfer custody of her children to his drug-addicted son, John Paul Getty Jr. Gail thought deeply about it, but ultimately signed the agreement to save Paul's life. After signing the agreement, Gale returned home and informed Fletcher that Getty had not sent the full ransom amount. He had only sent as much as could be written off as tax deduction, which legally came out to $1 million. Gale later went to meet Mr. Bashan, Getty at his house, and suggested that they announce to the media that the full $4 million had been arranged. This would buy them time and calm the kidnappers temporarily. Gale then made a public announcement during a press conference, stating that the ransom money had been arranged. This news spread quickly through the media. Getty also saw this news and immediately summoned Fletcher, angrily asking how Gale managed to arrange so much money when he had only given her $1 million. He made a cruel remark, accusing her of sleeping with someone to get the money. Hearing this, Fletcher lost his temper. He lashed out at Getty, calling him a greedy, miserable old man who was so obsessed with money that he had lived his entire life alone. After hurling insults, Fletcher stormed out. Getty was left in shock, as no one had ever spoken to him like that before. The next day, Gale's lawyer met Fletcher at the airport and informed him that Mr. Getty had finally sent the full ransom amount. The lawyer showed Fletcher a telegram from Getty stating that Gale could keep the full money and retain custody of both her children. The lawyer asked Fletcher what he had said to Getty to make him change his mind. Fletcher replied that he had told Getty something no one had ever dared to say to him before. Later, Fletcher contacted Sim Coda, who told him the exact location where the ransom money was to be delivered. He instructed them to bring the full amount, packed inside a bag. After this, Gale and Fletcher are called into a car along with the ransom money. Sim Coda had given Fletcher very clear instructions. He told him to bring 2 suitcases locked inside his car. After crossing the AutoStart toll gate, Fletcher had to drive south at a constant speed of 80 kilometers per hour without stopping anywhere. He warned him that they would be watching the car closely, and even if a single stone hit the vehicle on the way, Fletcher was not to stop under any circumstances. Fletcher was driving when suddenly a child fired a stone with a slingshot at the car's window. Seeing this, Fletcher stopped the car and stepped out. The child told him to leave all the money right there, drive the car 1 kilometer ahead to a petrol pump, and wait at the phone booth for their call. After saying this, the child ran away. Fletcher and Gale left all the bags of money there and drove to the petrol pump, where they waited for the call. On the other side, all the money reached Mamaliti. At his factory, the women working there counted the money, and it turned out to be complete. Mamaliti then ordered his men to hand the boy over. Sim Coda, along with Mamaliti's men, took Paul to a location in the forest. Quietly coming close to Paul, Sim Coda told him not to stay there and to run away toward Italy as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Gale received a call instructing her to drive 3 kilometers ahead to a work site where she would find her son. Following Sim Coda's advice, Paul started running away from there. On the other side, Mamaliti distributed the money among his men and also gave Sim Coda his share. Mamaliti then loaded all the remaining money into the trunk of his car and prepared to leave. Just then, one of Mamaliti's men arrived and informed him that the entire area had been surrounded by police. Hearing this, Mamaliti immediately ordered his men to find the boy and kill him. When Fletcher and Gale reached the specified location, they did not find Paul there. By looking at the shoe marks, Fletcher realized that the kidnappers had dropped Paul there, but he had escaped. From a hilltop, Fletcher could see a town below. At the same time, Mr. Runner, Getty was asleep at his mansion when he suddenly woke up. He began calling out to the staff working in his house, but no one was present. Paul, who had escaped, managed to reach the town on the hill. Mamaliti's men also reached the town while searching for Paul, intending to kill him. Seeing cars approaching, Paul began running again. Mamaliti's men, along with Sim Coda, searched the town for him. Fletcher and Gale also arrived in the town while searching for Paul. Fletcher soon realized that the kidnappers were also hunting Paul with the intention of killing him. Paul was hiding at one place, but suddenly ran out again in fear. Fletcher recognized Paul and started running after him, calling out his name. Terrified, Paul kept running faster. Eventually, he collided with a car belonging to a kidnapper and fell down. The kidnapper stepped out and was about to kill Paul when Sim Coda attacked him from behind. As Sim Coda was about to kill the kidnapper, Fletcher stopped him. Sim Coda then recognized Fletcher and asked him what he was doing there. Realizing the situation, Sim Coda told Fletcher to take the boy away immediately. Gale arrived at that moment, and Paul and Gale got into Fletcher's car. The 3 of them drove away safely. On the other side, Mr. Getty was inside his mansion, looking at a painting of a child and his mother. He took the painting down and stared at it for some time. While looking at it, Getty passed away. Deep down, Getty was hurt by the fact that despite having immense wealth, he had lived a lonely life. Seeing the painting reminded him of his wife and child. A few days after Mr. Getty's death, Gale was called to a Getty Oil board meeting. The board members informed her that Mr. Getty's death had created a crisis. Mr. Getty had established a charitable trust. Although he had never donated to charity in his life, this trust allowed him to save massive amounts of tax. However, there was a rule that the income could not be spent. only invested. Because of this, Mr. Getty invested his money in art and sculptures. As a result, his collection included some of the most valuable paintings and sculptures in the world. The king was dead, but the throne was empty. The throne would belong to the king's grandson once he turned 18. Until then, Gale was given the responsibility of managing the empire and was appointed the head of the corporation. Gale later shifted into Mr. Getty's estate with her family. She told Fletcher that she considered him family and wanted him to live with them as well. Fletcher replied that he was an employee and would continue to serve as one. Later, Fletcher took Paul around the estate. Gale looked at all the sculptures kept there. One of them was a statue of Mr. Getty himself, which made her feel angry. In the end, we learned that this entire story was based on real events. Paul Getty was a real oil tycoon, and his priceless art collection later became the foundation of a famous museum in Los Angeles, where his legacy still lives on today. Over time, a large part of the Getty family's wealth was also donated to charity. And with this, the movie comes to an end. So friends, if you found this story interesting and informative, make sure to hit the like button, and let's aim for 500 likes on this video. Share this video with your friends who enjoy real-life crime and drama stories. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe now for more such movie explanations. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care.